Bushrangers are dear to the heart of all Australians. In fact, they're an essential part of our folklore. But little is known about female bushrangers. Well, here's the story of Jessie Hickman, a cattle duffer who lived a wild outlaw's life in the Nullo Mountain range, a rugged part of Australia, not far from Mudgee.
This little town of Kandos is Lady Bushranger country, and this is where our Lady Bushranger, who was known here as Jessie Hickman, but when she was born she was Elizabeth Jessie Hunt.
1890, so begins the life of a wild woman, a woman who grew up in the Martini circus, a bareback rider, a buck-jumping champion, a woman who refused to play the ladylike roles.
She married the proprietor Martini. He was killed by the horses he loved, which broke her heart because he was the love of her life. And she carried on as proprietor of the circus and ring mistress, which back in those days was way before its time.
She married a dandy called Hickman, but the trouble started when he worked overseas and the money he sent never reached her. She had his son, but the early 1900s were difficult times.
There was no welfare, and so that she had to thieve to survive. And it wasn't long before she had a large support gang behind her of cattle duffers.
She roamed in the rugged Nullo Mountain range, a spur of the New South Wales Blue Mountains, thieving, sleeping in caves, dashing into Kandos for occasional help.
You gallop into their house, rush inside, pick up a parcel of food, dash back out and off, you see. And then wherever she was moving, there'd be caves or trees marked in a special way, and inside the hollow tree there'd be food parcel, or there might be shoes for her horse, or there could even be some clothing for her.
The courts condemned Jessie to a year in Long Bay Reform School, but after release, she went back to her bad old ways.
Again before the court, and this time prison, and that was for 18 months.
When she came out, she was sent as housekeeper to a cattle dealer with a reputation for violence against women. Jessie wasn't going to put up with it.
In self-defence, she just killed him and hid the body and fled to the mountains. And it was no use taking that to the police. I mean, if you told the police, look, it was in self-defence with a record of 2 jail terms, it was hopeless.
Her gang stuck by her.
She led them on many a daring raid, but Jessie was the one that could take cattle where they couldn't. And this is why they admired her. She took stock through this sort of country, down ghastly descents over the escarpment. It's a bushranger country, and it had been for years and years and years. Starlight, Thunderbolt was here too. And Jessie used the same caves and the same cattle holes.
Jessie wasn't a bushranger in the sense of robbing banks and holding up stagecoaches, but she did carry a gun, refused to ride side saddle, and she dressed like a man. Despite her thieving, unladylike ways, the locals respected her and gave her support whenever they could.
She walked tall, and they thought she looked fine. Because of riding out in the bush, she wore trousers, which in 1920 was really an unheard of thing. It was quite daring and not approved of. They thought she was marvellous because she backed the system, and you know, Australians love people who defy authority.
During 16 years in the bush, she led authorities on a merry runaround, at times stripping her clothes off so modest police wouldn't grab at her flesh. She was eventually imprisoned in Rylstone but acquitted when friends destroyed the evidence. Her long-lost husband, Hickman, bailed her out, and Jessie's bushranging days came to an end. There's an ironic twist to the story.
The family connections were that her grandfather literally made money. Jessie may have been a thief, but he was the head of the Sydney Mint.
But that money never filtered down to Jessie, of course, and her death was fitting to her life.
Jessie died following a horse accident, and her spirit, to me, is still here in the bushland, in the magic of the bush here.
Emma Rossi, 11am.
Well, there you go. Anything the male bushrangers can do, the females can do just as well, or even better. You're with 11am on the Whitten Farm here just outside of Tamworth. We're back with more after the break.